So thank you for joining us with this hot weather. So today I want to show you a little bit about why not all software in the world need to be SaaS in 2021. And we are I'm working at Dataiku, and we are the SaaS rebels, meaning that we don't develop a SaaS platform. So at Dataiku, what we do, we are a bit a small startup, I would say. We are founded in 2013. We are now 800 people, and we just raised $400 million, which makes us a fat unicorn. So we have the R&D in France, but all office all over the world. In 2013, our founder decided to create a startup, and they had, I would say, a few options at the time. So first option was, let's say, creating a smart pillow, the world-best smart pillow. You want to create a startup in 2013, that's the most voted project on the platforms at the time. So you get a sleep tracker, a smart alarm, a sunrise alarm, a guided meditation guide, and even reading lights. And best of everything, you have a cooling system, which on days like that would be awesome to have a nap here with a smart pillow. But I would say 8 years later, it has not been a great success. So option number 2, the career tie. Let's say if you want to be serious at work, you just have to wear a tie. And let's say you met some stranger, new colleagues, and you want them to know everything about you. What about flipping your tie, and they would scan the QR code that is on the back of your tie. So actually, it would be pretty useful with a pass sanitaire, nowadays in France. So if they want to check your pass sanitaire, you can just scan the QR code of your tie. Again, very good if you want to make a first impression on new people. Very bad that you will make a first impression on people that you just met. So, another idea, what about democratizing AI? So that's what our founder decided to do. And they wanted to have all enterprise, not just the big GAFAM, to be able to do AI in their project. So back then, the recipe was quite simple. You create a SaaS application. You make it free to use. You have lots of users. They are very happy. Your product is awesome, well known. Everybody talks about it in the press. You still don't know how to make money out of it, but that's okay. So at some point, you raise money. But then, remember, your product is free to use. It's very well received. So you will burn all your money just running your SaaS application. Because it's free for your user, but Amazon, Azure, or Google, that doesn't run the cloud services for free. So at some point, just rinse and repeat. You raise money, you burn it, again and again. So maybe that's the best way to start a software startup. That was true in 2013. It's still true for some businesses in 2021. So our founder decided to go and focus on the enterprise customers. Enterprise customers are very large companies that have lots of money. Sometimes they don't know what to do with money. So, but the real good thing is that if they have a need, they are willing to pay a lot of bucks to have a startup solve their problems. So they decided to go and democratize AI for enterprise customers. Problem is that if you do AI, you have to use a shitload of technologies. So many technologies that at Dataiku we even created a fake country called Technoslavia, where we can map all the different technologies that people use. So you have databases, but you also have Hadoop, at that time, Spark, Pig, and dozens of other technologies. And now you want to create your startup, and you have the choice between, on one side, create a SaaS platform, on the other side, create a good old on-prem software. So if you look at the installation setup, the first experience, hands down, go with the SaaS platform, because if you are a new user, you just have to sign up on the website. You enter your user, a password, your credit card number, that's very important, if your application is not free to use. And then you are ready to go. On the other side, if you are a customer and you have an on-prem platform, that's the startup is selling to you. You have to provision a server, meaning you have to go and talk to your Dell representative and ask for a server. You have to wait for the IT to install the server in the data center, install the OS, and then you can finally install the software. So it's pretty difficult. But then, trouble actually for SaaS arrive when you want to start using the platform, because you want to do machine learning, you want to do artificial intelligence, so you need a lot of data for that. If you are an enterprise customer, you already have the data. You have Hadoop clusters, Spark clusters, databases, and basically what you are trying to do with the SaaS platform is that you are asking all your customers to upload their data onto your platform. You can, for machine learning and deep learning, it's even more the case for deep learning, you really need a lot of data to have good results. Meaning that you basically are asking your user to upload to your system hundreds, maybe thousands of terabytes of data. It's not very practical. It will cost a lot of money that you will have to pay for it. So ask your customer to pay for it, even if they already have those data stored elsewhere. Same for the compute cluster. Those big customers have already compute clusters like Spark or Hadoop, and you're just telling them, hey, just sit down on your cluster. We have our cluster, and you can just forget about it. Another very interesting aspect is security. Because if you are a small startup, if you create a SaaS platform, basically you tell your customer, hey, you have to trust me, the small startup, that I have done everything that is possible in terms of security to secure your data. Think about, in AI and ML, in deep learning, sometimes you want to do image recognitions. So imagine a customer that has very sensitive satellite images and that want to identify military targets. Those satellite images, you better make sure that they will never leak anywhere in the world, because maybe your customer is not even, I would say, supposed to have this satellite image. So you have basically to make sure that security, that you do it very, very good. So it's up to you to do that. Very complex, and lots of enterprise customers will not trust a small startup. Instead, if you go with an on-prem software, basically you are telling the customers to do the security by themselves. The only thing you have to do is to make sure that your software doesn't contain any security breach. But apart from that, it's up to the customer to secure their infrastructure. So it's very, very much easier than just going SaaS. And finally, if you are a small startup, if you want to have a free version, on-prem software is very easy. Just go and come up with a community version or an open source version. Everybody can download it. Basically, it's free of charge for you. On the other side, if you want to host a free service, you still have to pay for it, and you have to pay maybe a lot. And in the case of a data science platform, you will have to pay a lot, because even a small project will need a lot of data, a lot of compute power, and you will have to pay for it. So, quote from Natasha, it's not because it's the path of least resistance it means it's the wrong path. Meaning that if it's easier for your customer and for you to run an on-prem software, you should not listen to everybody else that say, hey, go with the SaaS platform. So that's what Dataiku did right from the beginning. So here we have classic schema. We have Dataiku. It's installed inside the customer IT, and it has access to compute cluster, data lake, and SQL DBs. So that really makes us the SaaS rebels. So we are very proud we are the SaaS rebels, but there is always a but, is that it might feel like, as a developer, we are still developing in the last years and the last century. Actually, I started as a developer right on January 1st, 2000. I was on a duty on watch to watch for Y2K bug, and hopefully nothing happened that night, but was my first experience as a software developer is being ready to debug some production code that would crash. So we are in 2021, yet we still have releases, good old releases. Welcome Dataiku 10 that we will release next month. As a developer, there is a problem with on-prem software is that once you have shipped something, you can't change the code anymore. It's shipped, it's running on customer, and you are doomed if you just shipped a buggy software. Likewise, we cannot debug code on production because we don't have access to the production server. They are hosted by our customers. And we also have to support all the customers, the infrastructure, but also the customers. So all customers have created different infrastructure. So some go with Hadoop, some go with Spark, some mix Hadoop and Spark, some do Hadoop and Python, some prefer Hadoop and BigQuery and R, and we have basically to support the whole mix. We also have to support our customer. We don't have access to production server, so I just want to share a small anecdote, something that happened to me 4 years ago. So the software crashes, and the error message was no space left on device. So it's pretty much explicit. Customer asks for support, saying, hey, what we should do? We tell them, hey, your temporary directory is full, just clean it up. And he said, oh, I don't know how to do that. Okay, do you have IT? Yes, but they don't know how to do that. Okay, let's do some screen sharing session with your IT. So I start a call with the manager. So a screen sharing session with the manager located in England. And I say, okay, let's log on to the machine. He say, I don't have the right to. It's outsources. So you have to, he said, we will screen share with someone in India from the outsourcing company. So we screen share the screen share. We connect to some guy in India, and we say, just go to the directory and remove the directory. So we set the directory. I had to spell it. So cd space bar / user / and in the middle of me spelling this long directory, he said, oh, it's 6 o'clock. I'm no longer on duty. I will transfer the call to another guy. So basically, it took us 2 hours to remove a directory and restart the service. Meaning that sometimes it's very painful. Also, unlike SaaS platforms, we have no easy way to track what users are doing on a product, because again, we don't have access to the production server. And we can just forget about A/B testing at that point. I would say it's for SaaS platform. But actually, there is still hope. We have a way to mitigate a lot of these problems. So for releases, one way to mitigate that is to have cadence release. So at Dataiku, we do monthly releases. We have one large release every 6 months, but every month we release a new version, a minor version, which contains bug fixes a new version. Another thing is that we want our customer to do the upgrade, so they should not fear upgrading the platform. So what we should do is we should have painless and fast upgrades. So at Dataiku, if you upgrade the system, it takes 2 minutes. And it's no different than just restarting the server. If you have shipped the code, you can modify it, so why not just don't do shitty code, I would say. Make sure that you test your code, quality first, and don't rush into shipping something that is bad, because once it's shipped, you don't have any way to fix that again. So unlike SaaS platform where you can rush and fix later, then you have to go and put quality first. And then be prepared for a fix in case of a security breach or a critical bug. At Dataiku, we can generate a fix within a few, less than 1 hour, and our customer can have the hot fix if they are responsive enough in less than 2 hours from the moment they said, hey, I have a problem, to the moment we deliver the fix. Debugging on production server is really, I would say, difficult not to have that, meaning. So we have to go the logs route, meaning that we have to put lots of logs into our source code, so that afterwards, if the customer has a problem, we can ask for the logs, and we can, from the log, deduce what he did. Sometimes you say, have you done that? No. Look at the log and say, yes. Did you touch that button? No. Oh, yes, you touched that button. I told you not to. And we have diagnostic archives. So what are that? Just a big, large zip file that our customer can generate with a one-click button from the platform. And we collect all the log files that we have, but we also collect all configuration information that we can on the platform, meaning all the configuration file from the product. We do stack traces. So for 1 minute, we take one stack trace every 10 seconds. So that after that, with those stack traces, we can see if we have a deadlock or if we have a long-running method that should not run for 1 minute. And we also retrieve some key Linux configuration files or settings, such as the ulimit, because more often than not, this one is too low, and it governs the number of open files that you can have on a Linux system. So if it's too low, if you try to open too many files, it just crashes. For infrastructure, we have come up with a test framework where we can test not the matrix actually, but the EEC per cube of all the combination of what we support. And with this test framework, we can have a single test case, single test code that we can then run on multiple platforms. Meaning that we can write the code for testing the DB and then have it run on BigQuery, SQL Server, Azure Synapse, PostgreSQL, MySQL, and see if they all behave correctly. And we also want to be prescriptive, meaning that we want to guide customers into a path where it's easier for us and for them to have things working. So we have come up with architecture blueprints where we say, hey, it's better if you do that than if you do something that is more exotic. Tracking user is actually not that difficult, even for an on-prem platform. Actually, at Dataiku, the server is hosted in usually a very secure zone, but users that access this server are using their browser, and very often the browser has access to the internet. So basically, when they do something on the UI, we can just send a packet to our analytics server, just very easy. We also have come up with what we call digest. Digest are statistics of the platform or how it has been used, like the number of projects people have created, the number of logged users we see on a weekly basis, stuff like that. And what we do is that every week or so, we compute the digest on the server side, And when someone's log in, the browser will ask the server if he needs to send the digest to an analytics server. If yes, the server answer sends the digest to the browser, which sends it to the analytics. We do that only if the customer agrees with that, but we can basically, with this system, retrieve activity of our user and see what they are doing. A/B testing, but we can just forget about it because it just doesn't work very well with on-prem software. And more often than not, enterprise customers that don't like A/B testing, they want stuff that behave exactly the same, and they don't want us to add some randomness and the interface changing over time. So we have done everything on-prem, but still we should not ignore the cloud because cloud is there to stay. And over the past, I would say 5 years, the Technoslavia country has evolved a bit. So that's the 2017 one, and that's the 2021. And if we look at the warehousing district, we can see that nowadays, enterprise customers they store their data in mainly S3 or their Azure Blob or Cloud Storage equivalent, and BigQuery, Redshift, and Azure Synapse for the SQL databases. And Snowflake also, which is compatible with all three clouds. And when they want to install on-prem software, they don't call their Dell representative anymore. They just go to their cloud, boot a VM via EC2 or Azure VM, and they just use the public cloud like everybody else. Same if they want to deploy some small workload, they go with OpenShift or Kubernetes. So we had to adapt to this new, I would say, world. Still starting with an on-prem software. So what we have done is that we have basically created our own SaaS software. We can't resist the world is moving, so we have created what we call Dataiku Online, which is just the SaaS version of Dataiku. And actually, it makes a lot of sense for startup and small businesses. If you remember a few slides ago, we said that we were asking customers to move their data into our platform. But actually, for startups, they don't have IT. If they have a need, they just go and buy a subscription to the next SaaS service. So if they want a database, they go with Snowflake. If they want to equip their salespeople, they go with Salesforce. Marketing, what every single now, I would say, business area has is one or more SaaS platform. So why asking customer to move that into our product when it's already available on the web? So we just have integration with the SaaS product, like Snowflake, and we are good to go. But it doesn't solve the problem of enterprise customers, which still are using the clouds, but they are not using SaaS platforms, they are using the clouds themselves. So what we have come up with is what we call Dataiku Cloud Stacks. So it's an interesting technology. So we want to leverage basically what customers are doing in the clouds. So what we have come up with is that we actually ask the customer the key, hey, give me your keys and I will do everything for you. Like if you want to eat something tonight, you can either order your food with Uber Eats, or you can have a chef at home. You just give him the key of your kitchen, and he will prepare a very good meal for you. That's basically what we have done. We are asking basically some permission, and we are installing a Trojan horse into the customer IT. So Trojan horse is this small red bird, and we call it Fleet Manager, and it will actually spin instances and clusters for you. So you want a new Dataiku instance, you click a button, it's been an EC2 machine from our base image, or if you're on AWS, or an Azure image if you're on Azure. And Sam is able to spin a Kubernetes cluster, scale them up if needed, scale them down. And those instances, they are running inside the VPC, so they have access to all the data warehouse, and S3 buckets, and AWS, and Azure cloud storage. Oops, go back. Security and monitoring is also important because all those enterprise customers know that they are using the cloud. They have come up with security barriers, networks, and some monitoring is a way of monitoring. Some are using CloudWatch, some are using Azure Monitor, some are using their own monitoring solution. And since we are inside their cloud, we can use the same things that they are using. What's next? I would say cloud is here to stay. So for Dataiku Online, obviously, currently we have a flat a price that is based a flat price per user. So if you have 10 users, it's this price. If you have 20 users, it's this one. But what we have seen is that not all users are created equal. Some users are, I would say, way more compute hungry than others. So you can think that you have two users. One is an Excel, classic Excel user. He will run a few formula on a spreadsheet. Another one is a data scientist who loves to train model using 30 GPUs. They will not, they will not consume the same. So the problem is that all the cloud vendors make it very difficult for you to know how much you are consuming, basically, because they want you to think it's free, cheap, and stuff like that. So if you want to compute how much costs a cluster with 10 GPUs, where you transfer data into Azure Synapse, for example, you have to take into account lots of different pricing, and it's very difficult to know that precisely. So that's one stuff where we will, I would say, sweat a little bit to have something, do something good. And same for freemium offer. If we want to offer it for free, we have to find ways to make it so that free user doesn't cost us like $5,000 bill a month. For Dataiku Cloud Stack, one way that we might go is to go with what we call the hybrid cloud solution, meaning that currently the UI, the orchestrator, still runs inside the customer IT, but actually there is no very good value for that. So we could have a SaaS platform that is hosted by us ourselves, where customers logs in and actually do their work, and have workers deployed inside the customer ITs just to do the heavy work of scaling clusters, provisioning machines, and stuff like that. And it will be, I would say, even much more simpler for customers to do that. So to finish, I would give you, I would say, if you have two things to remember of this talk, is that whether or not it's SaaS or on-prem, or if you have two solutions, always choose the path of least resistance for your customers. Because if you don't do that, they will find a way. They will find it and they will use it. So always think about what's easier for your customer. And if you go and start an on-prem business, actually you can don't start from scratch, design your software to run on Kubernetes, because that's the de facto standard today. But a big warning is that Kubernetes works very well on the public cloud, meaning that the GKE from Google is very good, AKS from Azure is very good, EKS from AWS is very good, But if you have customers that have deployed their own Kubernetes clusters, it's always a mess. It's always, just be prepared to spend 2 hours like I did on the screen session, because I would say there is good chances that you will have to help them configure their Kubernetes cluster correctly. Chances are very low that they did it correctly the first time. And after that, I'll thank you very much. And if you have questions, I'm open.